Hey guys, welcome to the Silver Report Uncut. I wanted to go over what's happening inside of the cryptocurrency space, and for a while there's been this divide that's taken place. There are the fundamentalists. There are those who want to have freedom for all mankind. They want to have everything be anonymous. They're creating all types of apps and different ways to do this. But within the decentralized finance industry, some of the most creative money making seems to be taking place in what's called yield farming. Some cryptocurrency traders are making double, even triple-digit yields just by lending or borrowing different coins. The source of this money, of course, has long been questioned, but many commentators are calling it the equivalent of shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic, or worse. Now, in the most recent episode of Odd Lots podcast, I wanted to go over what the FTX Chief Executive Officer and crypto billionaire, Sam Bankman-Fried, he was saying about this whole subject. Now, first off, he said, can you give me an intuitive understanding of farming? So he's giving an explanation. I mean, like to me, farming is like you sell some structured puts and collect premium, but perhaps there's a more sophisticated understanding than that. And this is excellent when he says, let me give you sort of a really toy model of it, which I actually think is a surprising amount of legitimacy for what farming could mean. You know, where do you start? You start with a company that builds a box. And in practice, this box, they probably dress it up to look like a life-changing, world-altering protocol that's going to replace all of the big banks in 38 days or whatever. Maybe for now, actually ignore what it does or pretend it literally does nothing. It's just a box. So what this protocol is, it's called Protocol X. It's a box. You take a token, you can take Ethereum, you can put it in the box, you take it out of the box. All right, so you put it into the box and you get an IOU for having put it into the box. And then you can redeem that IOU back out for the token. So far, what we've described is the world's dumbest ETF or ADR. Something like that. It doesn't do anything but let you put things in, and if you so choose, and then the protocol issues a token. We call that whatever X token. And X token promises that anything cool that happens because of this box is going to be ultimately usable by, governance vote of holders of the X tokens. They can vote on what to do with any proceeds or other cool things that happens from this box. And of course, so far, we haven't exactly given a compelling reason for why there ever would be any proceeds from this box. But I don't know. Maybe there will be. So that's sort of where we start. And then you say, all right, well, you've got this box. You've got X tokens, and the box protocol declares or maybe votes on chain governance, and, something like that. That what they're going to do is they're going to take half of all the X tokens that were reminted. Maybe two-thirds will offer X tokens. So they're going to give them away for free, or to whoever uses the box. So anyone who goes, takes some money, and puts it in the box, each day they're going to airdrop, 1% of the X tokens pro rata among everyone who puts money in the box. That's for now what X token does. It gets given away to box people. Now what happens is X token, it has some market cap, right? It probably is not zero. Let's say it, is $20 million in the market cap. And so Matt cuts in and says, wait. From first principles, it should be zero. But okay. He says, completely reasonable comments. He describes it this way. You might think, for instance, that in 5 minutes with an internet connection, you could create such a box and such a token. And it should be worth $180 or something of the market cap like that. That effort that you put into it, in the world that we're in, if you do this, everyone's going to be like, ooh, a box token. Maybe it's cool. If you buy the box token, that's going to appear on Twitter, and it'll have $20 million market cap. And of course, one thing that you could do is you could maybe make a float very low or whatever. Maybe there hasn't been $20 million that has flowed into it yet. Maybe that's sort of mark-to-market fully diluted valuation or something. But I acknowledge that it's not totally clear that this thing should have any market cap, but empirically I claim it would have market cap. It shouldn't have any market cap in theory, but in practice, they always do, okay? So obviously, we're already sort of hiding some of the magic impact, right? Some of the magic is in how do you get the market cap to start with, whatever we're going to move on from for that second. So X tokens, they're being given away every day. All these sophisticated firms are like, that's interesting. In the total amount of money in the box, it's $100 million. And it's going to yield $16 million this year in X tokens being given out for a 16% return. That's pretty good. We'll put a little bit more in, right? And maybe that happens until there's $200 million in the box. So, sophisticated traders or people on crypto, they're sort of similar parties. They go and put $200 million in the box collectively, and they start getting these X tokens for it. And now all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, people just decided to put $200 million in this box. It must be a really nice box. Like, is it a valuable box as demonstrated by all the money that people are apparently deciding that they should be putting into it? And we are to say that they're wrong about that. Like, boxes can be great. Look, I love boxes as much as the next guy. And so what happens now? All of a sudden people are kind of recalibrating like, well, that 20 million, that's it? Like that market cap for this box? It's been 48 hours, it's already hit $200 million, including from the sophisticated players that are putting money into it. They're like, come on, that's too low. And they look at these ratios, the total value locked in the box, as a ratio to market cap of the box's token. And so it's 10x. That's insane. 1x is the norm. So then, X token prices, they begin to surge. Now it's 130 million market cap just because of the bullishness of people's usage of this box. Now all of a sudden, of course, the smart money is like, wow, this thing's now yielding 60% a year in X tokens. And of course, I'll take my 60% yield, right? So they pour another 100 or 300 million in the box. And now you get a psyche that goes to infinity. And everyone begins to make money. I think of myself as a fairly cynical person, but so far, there's much more cynical of how I've been describing farming. So he says, on the one hand, I think this is a pretty reasonable response. But let me play around with this a little bit, because that's one framing of this. I think there's like a sort of depressing amount of validity in it, because I'll stay on the cynical route. Think about this cynically. What could happen here? So you've got these box, right? And it's kind of dumb. But it's like, what's the end game, right? The box is worth 0, obviously. And like that, you can keep this smart cap or something. But on the other hand, if everyone kind of now thinks that this box token is worth like $1 billion market cap, that's what people are pricing it at, and sort of has that market cap. Everyone's going to mark to market. In fact, you can even finance this, right? You put X token in a borrow lending protocol, and you borrow dollars with it. If you think it's worth like less than 2/3 of that, you could even put some puts in there. Take the dollars out. Never, give the dollars back. You just get liquidated eventually. And it is sort of like real monetizable stuff in some sense. And at some point, if the world never decides that we are wrong about this in some coordinated way, like you're kind of the guy calling and saying, no, this is actually worthless. But in what sense are you right? So really, what I'd say is that it could come in theory from either. You can sort of get a market cap either because of cash flow, or then Warren Buffett's like, F that, or I'm going to buy this if it's all too cheap for a price, because I'll just buy it and own it and get cash flow from it. And that's great. You can see something get market cap that way. I don't know. Dogecoin or SHIB coin have, where people are just kind of like, haha, and then they buy it. And if you're like, that's dumb, it has no cash flow, I'm going to short sell it. You lose all of your money. And those that are like, at least over the last few years, this is how it's been. Those have been ways that assets have gotten market cap. And I sort of think that this starts to hint at like at least some interesting angles on this, because it's not just cryptocurrencies that have had this dynamic. AMC or Hertz or GameStop or the meme stocks in general, they've had a very similar pattern of this. And the sort of concepts, maybe people will pay something for it. They'll pay something for it, and even though it doesn't seem traditionally valuable, it's not a crypto-specific concept, although it certainly has become that way. So the money to pay out these dividends, he's kind of angling at, and I listened to this whole podcast, it was an hour. He's explaining is coming from new investors. More people putting money in the box, and they're paying out a big yield, so people keep putting money in the box. And it's very attractive. It's a huge yield sometimes. You're talking about 16 or even 60% is huge compared to what's going on in the world. Interest rates are so low. And they're getting so much yield because they're holding their money in the box. Technically, they can remove it at any time, and they can pay a little bit of a fee, a little bit of a penalty for moving it too early if they lent it out. But as long as they want to continue to get that yield, they'll keep the money in the box. And they could raise the yield to just make it so enticing that people can't resist putting their money there. So this is a Ponzi scheme. This is a Ponzi scheme where all the money to pay out the investors is coming from new investors New people coming in and putting their money into the box. And they're paying people a yield to keep their money in this box so they can continue to loan it. Now what happens is when the price just gets crushed like this, it goes from, around 60,000, 45,000 down to 20,000, all these people get just destroyed. They get liquidated. People want to remove that money from the box immediately, even if it's loaned out. And so you have all these people coming in and calling in this money. They're taking in this money, and all these companies are beginning to fail. Now, what he had suggested is that we have only seen the beginning of this, that we're going to see a wrecking ball come through the entire crypto space and take out tons of these companies. Now, there's a couple of different angles on this because he was actually suggesting, the SEC needs to step in and begin to protect the citizens. Now, I don't agree with him there. He kind of sounds like he works for them or something like that, because that's exactly what they've been saying. We need to protect the consumers. The SEC doesn't protect consumers. And it's the businesses that are failing. And yes, many consumers did get hit hard by the cryptocurrency market and all this drop. But that's not why the SEC would come in to regulate these markets. But it is true. It's like the Wild West. They're operating things that you can't do in the stock market because the SEC has rules and regulations now. They're operating Ponzi schemes, and this is almost the entire crypto lending space. And it's really dangerous because now it's like they just went through a whole entire full-blown credit crisis within the crypto market. People think, it's just crypto. The price just dropped. Everyone's bummed. They just lost some money. No, they just went through an entire crypto crisis, and banks have been moving their money like crazy in there. Now, interestingly, Bitcoin dropped around 20,000, where we seem to have a very firm floor. The Bank of International Settlements came out with an announcement that all of their member banks are now allowed to hold 1% of their total holdings in cryptocurrency. This was like a few days after the price cracked, and now so you have all these major central banks around the world that are now going to be allowed to keep 1% of their assets in cryptocurrency. Now think about it, right? If all those banks held 1% of the cryptocurrency or 1% of their holdings in cryptocurrency, they would essentially corner the market. They could have one of those little meetings where all the bank heads get together and they could say, sell all your crypto right now, and really cause the price to crash at any moment. They could gain enormous amounts of control. Either way, the space is actually kind of scary right now. It's not cryptos themselves. The reason I use Bitcoin all the time, and I've been watching this very close, and I think, in my honest opinion, it's about to go crazy. I think Bitcoin's about to surge, and I've been waiting for it every day. I think there's a lot of people out there who are waiting for it every day. Whenever the price dropped down here, everyone kept saying it's a great buying opportunity. And they didn't sound like they were joking at all. I know they're not. People have begun to go through this a few times. And they begin to irrationally believe that it can happen forever. It's always going to just come back up. And I say irrationally because there doesn't seem to be any reasoning for why we would believe that. But I do believe it. I believe it because people want to get and make money. They're greedy. People in general I'm talking about, not people who are just investors, but they want to make money. They know what it can do. They're not yet sure what it will do, which I think it'll far surpass any of the highs we've seen so far. But they know what it can do. And so they want to begin shifting a little bit of money in here as soon as they begin to feel like the floor is in. Now, the other day, I got a whole bunch of alerts on my phone. And it said, Bitcoin is up 5%. Wow, it gained 5%. And then another set of alerts came through a little bit toward the evening, and it was saying Bitcoin price gained 5%, and it was up 10%. It was quite astonishing, really, and it grew up to around 23,000. And immediately thought, I better put some money in there. I better get some money in there. This thing's about to blow. That's my thought all the time. It's a prevailing thought. It's with me all the time that Bitcoin is about to go bananas and that you can't jump on the train while it's moving. You're going to try to jump on the train while it's moving. It's going to be more difficult, but it might be safer. This is an investment advice, by the way. This is a theory in my mind. It just has to do with the human psyche. Like he was talking about the valuelessness of this box. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin is considered valueless by many different people. It has value. But they consider it valueless, but there's so many people who think it's bullish and it's going to go crazy and Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million. They think it no matter what. They have this in their mind. It's sealed there. It's tattooed on their brain. And it's very possible they're right. The potential's there. People never thought it could go to the prices we've seen so far. I still remember being concerned about Bitcoin back when it was around $800, thinking it could crash the whole way. It went through a huge drop. And it's done insane things since then. Things that you never thought would be possible. You are not getting gains like that in the stock market. You might get gains from stocks. You're not getting gains like that from stocks, even in the biggest and baddest QE they could ever invent. And also, they're not seeing losses like that in just a moment of time. All these banks were dabbling in this. All of them were getting in this finance world and trying to tiptoe and to use cryptocurrency for leverage. And they were all leveraged up. They thought that it would continue to stay forever. It was not going to drop any further, that they were safe. And the whole thing just fell apart. I mean, this is global as well. So it's like we had a stock market crash that is worse than any stock market crash we had, but most people didn't see it because it's not being tracked. It's not being monitored. It's not being focused on because we've never gone through it before. It's so new. I don't know. I think the Wild West days are coming to an end, but I do think that Bitcoin is going to take off against all the will of the powers of darkness, and it's going to do well. People think it's a part of their plan, and I think that they have a whole lot of plans that are very visible and spoken out, and that they want to do with cryptocurrency, that they want to begin to bring regulation in and to monitor all the KYC exchanges, the KYC at exchanges, which is know your customer, which is them collecting, identifying information to provide for the government. And you think, well, I don't think they'll do that. My exchange wouldn't do that. Coinbase has been doing this for 7 years. They just came out with information about this. And it's not even a law yet. They're just giving all the information over to the FBI and all the federal agencies. Yeah, your ID, your phone number, your social security card, how much you buy, what you pay, everything. All the information you have on there. A lot of private information. You thought it was private. But they're going to try to go and they implement that across the board. Everyone has to have that information stored and collected, just like in banks. You know, they just make it up as they go along because I don't see the justification for any of that besides the fact that they want to control the world. The best reason that I use, or the reason I use cryptocurrency is to transfer my money from the United States. You know, I saw it in the expat groups online and they were all talking about, you know, what's the best bank I should use for international transfers? Or how do I transfer money to myself without paying this? Or how do I do this without going through my bank and this and that? And I'm thinking, this is so old school. I said, just send it to yourself. Buy cryptocurrency from your bank account, attach your bank account to it, buy it from your bank account, wait a couple of days till it clears, and just send it to yourself. Get like a BitPay card or any of these other, you know, huge amount of different debit cards and withdraw it at an ATM. Therefore, you don't have to talk to the bank about nothing, about anything. The bank has nothing to do with it. You don't have to worry about that. They say, oh, what about safety? What's the safest way? They're worried about the bank ripping them off once it gets here. Well, guess what? When you send it to yourself, you don't get ripped off. When you verify your own numbers with your own hands and send it from yourself, that's truly permissionless. So if the price of Bitcoin gets slammed like this and smashed all the way to the ground, it doesn't affect me. I still just transfer it right over the same way I used to. It's only in Bitcoin for its utility. It gets transferred from US dollars into Bitcoin, at which point it then gets sent over to my other wallet, and then I can go and exchange it for go withdraw it as cash. So it's not in Bitcoin the entire time because once it gets to the BitPay, then it gets converted from Bitcoin into US dollars and put on the card immediately. So there's no way that that's going to hurt me in a little bit of time. And if you lose like a $1 here or 30 cents there, it's not the end of the world, man. What they're charging for international rates and banking is insane. The one bank I went to the other day, there was an ATM. They wanted to charge me. It's called BBVA, and they wanted to charge me $7 to withdraw money at the ATM. And then there's another fee. There's another fee that they were talking about, an international exchange rate fee. So they wanted to charge me somewhere around $10 just to get money out of their ATM. Screw these banks. It's way infinitely less. It's infinitely less dealing with cryptocurrency than it is. And it would be even better if a whole bunch of people used it because then I wouldn't need to transfer it. I could just send it to each person I need to buy things from. It'd be great if my employees all used it. I try to convince them to, but they don't really understand the value, I don't think. A couple do. They think it's interesting, but then they want to learn. It'd be great if I could do the entire payroll like that. Matter of fact, it'd be better to do it in Monero or Pirate Chain so nobody knows what's going on at all. Because forget their tax collectors. They're data analysts. They're spies. Forget them all. I thank you guys for stopping by and joining us. As always, stay free.